Jessica thought she won the lottery when she got offered $32 an hour to work from home. 3 weeks later, her bank account was frozen and the FBI was calling her phone. This is a story of how one fake job posting on Indeed almost destroyed a family's entire financial future. And the worst part? The scammers used a method so clever that even bank tellers fell for it. Right now, there are probably dozens of people watching this video who have the exact same fake job offer sitting in their email inbox, and they have no idea they're about to lose everything. It started on a Tuesday morning when Jessica's husband Mark was scrolling through Indeed, desperately looking for work. He'd been laid off 3 months earlier, and their savings were almost gone. Bills were piling up, and Jessica was working double shifts just to keep their heads above water. That's when Mark saw it, the perfect job posting. Administrative assistant position, fully remote, $32 an hour. No experience required, immediate start date. And the company was willing to provide all necessary equipment. It seemed like the answer to their prayers. Within 2 hours of applying, Mark got a response. Not just any response. A phone call from someone claiming to be a hiring manager at a company called Sterling Solutions. The voice on the other end was professional, friendly, and everything Mark wanted to hear. The interview was surprisingly easy. Basic questions about his availability, his computer skills, and his willingness to work flexible hours. No technical questions, no requests for references, and no complicated application process. The hiring manager explained that they were expanding rapidly and needed people who could start immediately. By the end of the call, Mark had a job, just like that. The hiring manager said they would send over the employment paperwork and his first assignment by email. Mark hung up the phone and told Jessica the good news. Finally, their luck was turning around. The next morning, Mark received an official-looking email with a job offer letter, tax forms, and his first work assignment. The company logo looked professional. The letterhead was convincing, and everything seemed legitimate. But there was one thing that should have been a red flag. They needed him to handle some financial transactions as part of his administrative duties. Mark's first assignment was simple. Sterling Solutions had overpaid a vendor, and they needed Mark to help process the refund. They would send him a check for $8,000. His job was to deposit the check, keep $500 as his first week's pay, and send the remaining $7,500 back to the vendor via wire transfer. When Jessica heard about this arrangement, something felt wrong. But Mark convinced her it was normal. After all, he'd spoken to the hiring manager on the phone, received official paperwork, and the check looked completely legitimate. Even the bank teller who helped him deposit it didn't see any red flags. The check cleared immediately, and Mark saw the $8,000 appear in their account. For the first time in months, Jessica and Mark felt like they could breathe. They even went out to dinner to celebrate Mark's new job. 3 days later, Mark sent the wire transfer as instructed. $7,500 sent to an account in another state. The transaction went through without any problems, and Mark felt proud that he'd completed his first assignment successfully. That's when everything went horribly wrong. The next Monday, Jessica was at work when she got a call from their bank. The representative sounded serious. The $8,000 check that Mark had deposited was fake. Not just fake, it was so obviously fake that the bank was shocked it had initially cleared their system. But here's the devastating part. Even though the check was fake, the wire transfer Mark sent was very real. That $7,500 was gone forever. And because Mark had initiated the transfer, the bank considered him responsible for the loss. Jessica rushed home to find Mark staring at his computer in disbelief. Their bank account wasn't just empty. It was negative $7,500. The bank had reversed the fake check deposit and was demanding immediate payment for the overdraft. Mark tried calling Sterling Solutions, but the phone number was disconnected. The email address bounced back as undeliverable. The company website that had looked so professional just days earlier was completely gone. It was as if Sterling Solutions had never existed. But the nightmare was just beginning, because Mark had deposited a fraudulent check and sent a wire transfer. The bank flagged their account for suspicious activity. They froze all of Jessica and Mark's accounts while they investigated what they assumed was a money laundering scheme. Jessica couldn't access her paycheck. They couldn't pay their rent. Their credit cards were declined everywhere they went. And because their account was flagged for fraud, other banks wouldn't let them open new accounts. The couple that had celebrated their good fortune just a week earlier was now facing financial ruin. They had to borrow money from family members just to buy groceries. Their landlord threatened eviction. And worst of all, they discovered they were alone. When Jessica posted about their experience on social media, dozens of people responded with similar stories. People who had fallen for the exact same scam, lost thousands of dollars, and had their banking relationships destroyed. The scam was brilliantly designed to exploit people's desperation and trust. The scammer specifically targeted people who were unemployed or struggling financially, knowing they would be more likely to overlook red flags in their excitement about finding work. Mark learned that the check he deposited was created using stolen account information from a real business. The scammers had somehow obtained legitimate bank routing numbers and account details, which they used to create checks that initially passed basic verification systems. The wire transfer Mark sent didn't go to a vendor who needed a refund. It went directly into accounts controlled by the scammers, who immediately moved the money through multiple accounts to make it untraceable. But here's the part that made Mark feel even worse. He wasn't just a victim. By depositing the fake check and sending the wire transfer, he had unknowingly become part of the money laundering process. The bank treated him like a criminal until he could prove he was actually a victim. It took 3 months for Jessica and Mark to clear their names with the banking system. 3 months of phone calls, paperwork, police reports, and legal fees. Even after they proved they were victims of fraud, some financial institutions remained hesitant to work with them. The investigation revealed that Sterling Solutions was just one name used by a criminal organization that had created dozens of fake companies. They were running the same scam simultaneously with different company names, different job titles, and different cover stories. The scammers were so sophisticated that they had created fake websites, fake social media profiles, and even fake employee directories. They had phone systems that made it appear they were calling from legitimate business numbers. Everything was designed to create the illusion of a real, successful company. Law enforcement told Jessica and Mark that prosecuting these scammers was nearly impossible. Many of them operated from other countries, used fake identities, and moved money through complex networks that made tracking difficult. The fake job offer that seemed like a blessing had turned into a financial nightmare that took over a year to fully recover from. Mark eventually found legitimate work, but the couple learned a painful lesson about job scams that they'll never forget. Today, Jessica and Mark share their story to warn others about fake job offers. They want people to know that legitimate employers will never ask new employees to handle financial transactions, especially involving checks and wire transfers. The most heartbreaking part of their story is how close they came to losing everything. If they hadn't been able to borrow money from family, they could have ended up homeless, all because of one fake job posting that seemed too good to be true. Mark now tells people that if a job offer seems perfect, especially when you're desperate for work, that's exactly when you need to be most careful. Scammers know that desperation makes people overlook obvious warning signs. The Sterling Solutions scam is still active today, using different company names and slightly modified approaches. Jessica estimates that she's seen at least 50 people post about similar experiences on social media in just the past year. Their advice to job seekers is simple. If someone offers you a job that involves handling money before you've even started working, run. No legitimate company operates that way. And if something seems too good to be true, it probably is.